When they came to, I convinced them it was 2 years later and the war was over.
You try this again, I'll have Andrea break your other leg.
Let's start with a revenge story. Back in the 50s, Hollywood blacklisted a screenwriter named Carl Foreman for refusing to name names. This is the guy who wrote High Noon and then he was done, banned and unhirable. So he moved to England and secretly wrote The Bridge on the River Kwai. It won the Oscar for Best Screenplay. The award went to the French author of the original novel who barely spoke English and had nothing to do with the script. So Foreman decided to get his name back the hard way. He wrote and produced The Guns of Navarone. On a Greek island, there's 2 massive German guns built into a cliff, controlling the only sea lane out. 2,000 stranded British soldiers die in 6 days unless ships get past those guns, and no ship survives them. Bombers can't touch them either. So command sends 6 men to climb the one cliff face the Germans don't bother guarding and blow the guns from the inside. Gregory Peck leads the team, and Anthony Quinn plays the teammate who has promised to kill him the day the war ends. It became one of the 2 biggest movies of 1961, right next to West Side Story. 7 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture, and one of those 7 nominations was Best Screenplay, this time with Foreman's name on it. Number 2 is a con about a con. Hell is for Heroes is about 6 American soldiers ordered to hold a stretch of front line built for 150 men. If the Germans across the field figure out how few they are, they walk right through. So the squad starts bluffing. They hang cans on wires to fake sentries, and they drive one Jeep in circles all night so it sounds like convoys arriving. Steve McQueen plays a demoted antisocial loner who's useless at everything about the Army except the killing part. It's a nice, tense war movie, and it could have been a masterpiece. Except behind the camera, Paramount was slashing the budget mid-shoot and pushing the crew to wrap early. So the production was faking a war with no money, and in the middle of it all was Steve McQueen at his absolute worst. He fought with the cast. He even fought with writer-director Robert Pirosh, a real master sergeant from the Battle of the Bulge. Pirosh ended up walking off his own movie. It ends mid-battle. McQueen charges a bunker with a satchel charge, the explosion goes off, and it cuts to black. There's no resolution at all. Partly because Paramount pulled the money and there was nothing left to shoot. People in 1962 hated it, but it plays great now. This is John Wayne's darkest movie, made while he was dying and didn't know it. In Harm's Way is a 3-hour Pearl Harbor epic, and on paper it's the squarest thing imaginable. It's not. Wayne plays a captain who botches his first pursuit of the Japanese fleet, gets parked behind a desk, and spends the movie clawing his way back to sea. His grown son despises him, and his best friend, Kirk Douglas, is a wreck whose wife dies during the Pearl Harbor attack. Halfway through, Douglas assaults a young nurse. The movie doesn't redeem him. He flies off on a suicide recon mission, dies, and nothing gets fixed. And Wayne was sick the whole shoot. He wrapped, went in for a checkup, and came out with a lung cancer diagnosis. They removed his entire left lung that fall. On screen, he's slower and quieter than you've ever seen him, and now you know why. This one is a true story about the worst deal of World War II. Eric Erickson was an American-born oil businessman living in Sweden. The Allies blacklisted his company, then offered him the exit. Spy for us inside Nazi Germany. Your oil business gets you into the refineries we want to bomb. And here's what the cover required. Erickson had to turn Nazi in public. Toast Hitler at dinner parties. Denounce the Allies in the papers. His best friends cut him off. His country despised him, and he couldn't tell one living soul why, for years, with no promise the truth would ever come out. And here's a fun bit of timing. The first James Bond movie came out that same year. So in 1962, you could watch the fantasy version of espionage with casinos, gadgets, and one-liners. Or you could watch this one where being a spy means everyone you love hates you and you can never explain. Guess which version we kept making for 60 years? This is a movie where a star fired his director because he wanted explosions and accidentally made the smartest war film of the decade. It's set in Paris in August 1944. The Allies are days out, and a German colonel is loading the entire modern art collection of France onto one train bound for Berlin. Burt Lancaster plays the railway inspector ordered by the resistance to stop that train, without damaging the cargo, while the Germans execute hostages for every act of sabotage. The original director here was Arthur Penn, who wanted a quiet, thoughtful picture about why art matters. Lancaster fired him days into shooting and called John Frankenheimer, who does not do quiet. Every crash in this movie is a real locomotive. They bought trains and wrecked them in one take with cameras everywhere. The bombed rail yard is a real French yard that was already scheduled for demolition, so they just blew it up on camera. There isn't a single miniature in the entire movie. 2 hours of real steel getting wrecked in black and white. That's why it still holds up. Number 6 needs no introduction, so here's the stuff you might not know. The Dirty Dozen is 12 military convicts offered a deal. Survive a suicide mission behind German lines right before D-Day, and the sentence disappears. Lee Marvin plays the major who has to turn them into a unit. It was one of the biggest hits of 1967, and every Men on a Mission movie since has been copying its homework. One of the best things about this movie is the cast. Lee Marvin wasn't playing soldier. He was a Marine who got shot at Saipan. Jim Brown was the best running back in NFL history, and when the shoot ran long in England, the Cleveland Browns owner publicly threatened to fine him for missing training camp. So Brown called a press conference on the movie set and retired from football on the spot. And then there's Donald Sutherland, a nobody hired to fill out the back row. The ending, by the way, shocked everyone in 1967. The heroes pour gasoline into a bunker full of trapped German officers and their women and drop grenades in after it. Critics were horrified. Marvin, the guy who'd actually been to a war, just called it an entertainment picture. Number 7 is what happens when somebody watches The Dirty Dozen and goes, "Not cynical enough." Play Dirty is Michael Caine in North Africa leading a unit of criminals and mercenaries across the desert to blow up one of Rommel's fuel depots. Sounds familiar, except this movie hates everybody. The criminals aren't lovable. Caine's character is an oil man in uniform who's only there because somebody has to be, and their own command is running a second proper team on the same target. Caine's group exists mostly to draw fire. Headquarters is literally betting on them dying. The movie bombed in 1969, and a big reason is the ending, which I won't spoil. I'll just say it's the meanest final 30 seconds of any war movie of the decade, and it's exactly why people still watch this film even now. This movie exists because Richard Burton's kids complained. See, Burton was doing prestige dramas, and his boys told him they wanted to see him in an adventure like the other stars. So Burton called a producer, the producer called Alistair MacLean, the Navarone guy, and asked him to invent something. MacLean wrote an original script in 6 weeks. The novel came out afterwards based on the movie. The whole thing was made to order, like a pizza. An American general who knows the D-Day plans is being held in a Bavarian castle you can only reach by cable car. A team drops in to get him out. Burton in charge, plus a young Clint Eastwood is the American along for the ride. And then the plot starts folding in on itself. There's a traitor in the team. Then there are 3. It's pretty difficult to keep up sometimes, but it's still worth it. Eastwood's job is simpler. He shoots people. By most counts, he kills more men in this movie than in any other film of his entire career. The man made 20 years of westerns and cop movies, and his record body count is this one. Attack on the Iron Coast stars Lloyd Bridges 12 years before Airplane, and it was made for pocket change. It's one of those quickie war programmers the studios pumped out in the late 60s. The sets wobble and the models sure look like models. But it still holds up even now because the story it's built on actually happened, and it's one of the craziest operations of the entire war. In 1942, the British took an obsolete destroyer, hid delayed fuse explosives in its bow, disguised it as a German ship, and sailed it into the most heavily defended dry dock in occupied France. And then they just rammed it into the dock gates at full speed. The Germans captured the ship. They swarmed it, brought officers aboard to inspect their prize. The next day it exploded, took hundreds of them with it, and knocked that dock out for the rest of the war. The commandos who survived call it the greatest raid of all. The movie is the fictionalized TV money version, with Bridges as the commander who has to bully the operation into existence over every sane objection. And it works anyway because the premise carries it. This one has the best premise. Days before D-Day, the Germans drug and kidnap an American major who knows where the invasion is landing. But they don't torture him. Torture is unreliable. Instead, they build a complete fake American military hospital in Bavaria. And when he wakes up, a friendly American doctor, who is actually German intelligence played by Rod Taylor, gently explains that it's 1950. The war ended years ago. The Allies won. He's been in amnesia treatment ever since, so there's no harm at all as part of his recovery in talking through the last thing he remembers, which happens to be the invasion plans. James Garner plays the major, and the movie turns into a chess game the second the first crack appears. I'll give you just one example. A few days before the kidnapping, Garner's character got a paper cut. If it's really 1950, that cut is a 6-year-old scar, but it's still fresh. Watch it knowing as little as possible. Everything past the paper cut you want to experience blind.